The war room aboard the dreadnought Oblivion's Fong was a cavern of polished obsidian, glowing with tactical holodisplays and the smugness of 1,000 years of galactic conquest. At the center stood Admiral Grakther the Unyielding, scales shimmering with the green-gray sheen of someone who had never once been proven wrong. His voice carried through the chamber like rolling thunder as he addressed his officers, who lined up in perfect rows, antennae trembling with reverence. "Let us put this nonsense to rest," Grakther declared, eyes narrowing. "Humans are not real. They are nothing more than myths whispered by primitives who need bedtime monsters to scare their larvae into compliance." The officers nodded in unison, some chuckling at the absurdity of it all. One of them, a junior tactician named Rylax, raised a timid claw. "Admiral, the records we unearthed from the ruins of the Vexorian archives, they do describe a species matching these so-called humans. Hairless bipeds. Aggressive. Resourceful. Unpredictable." Grakther smirked, baring his fangs in what passed for a grin. "Fairy tales. The same archives spoke of star beasts that devour suns and singing stones that predict the future. Superstition." His voice lowered into a growl. "And even if they were real, what could a race of soft-skinned apes achieve against us? We have gravity lances, quantum ruptures, and the finest fleet this quadrant has ever seen. We have no need to fear legends." The chamber rumbled with approving laughter, the kind of laughter only the utterly convinced can summon. Orders were given, engines roared to life, and the invasion fleet set its course for the pale blue dot spinning quietly in its spiral arm of the galaxy, Earth. Their first landing zone, chosen by algorithm for low resistance probability, was a strange sprawl of asphalt, neon, and questionable architecture labeled New Jersey. As the troop transport descended through the murky clouds, Rylax adjusted his breathing mask nervously. "Admiral, atmospheric analysis indicates high levels of carbon dioxide, methane, and, processed sugar particulates." "Insignificant," Grakther barked. "Primitive pollution. They choke their own skies. Their weakness will be our weapon." The landing craft hissed open with a hydraulic sigh. Out marched a squad of shock troopers, armor gleaming, weapons humming with lethal resonance. They were trained to expect shrieking primitives, perhaps sticks and stones, maybe even crude firearms. What they found instead was an old mechanic in oil-stained overalls, leaning against a rusted pickup truck and blasting Bon Jovi from a boombox that looked as if it had survived a small war of its own. The man squinted at the newcomers, then spat tobacco juice into the dust. "Nice Halloween costumes. Y'all here for Comic-Con?" The lead trooper hesitated. His translator implants scrambled frantically, unsure whether Comic-Con was a tribal war cry or a diplomatic greeting. Before clarification could be sought, a paintball splattered bright neon green across his visor. Then another. Then a dozen more. From behind a chain-link fence, a group of teenagers emerged, shrieking with laughter, paintball guns cocked and firing. "Get the freaky Power Rangers," one shouted. Alien formation collapsed instantly. Shock troopers stumbled, blinded by sticky paint. Their plasma rifles discharged wildly, searing holes into hot dog stands and setting a tire pile ablaze. Grakther watched the feed from the command ship, mandibles twitching in disbelief. "Explain this chaos," he thundered. Rylax consulted the cultural database. "Admiral, it appears to be recreational combat. A juvenile war simulation. No actual lethality intended." Grakther's claws clenched into the command rail. "You're telling me they are playing war against us?" The absurdity of it was compounded when a biker gang, alerted by the ruckus, rumbled into view on their chrome beasts. They circled the bewildered shock troopers, engines growling, chains swinging, Molotov cocktails lighting the dusk. One biker, leather jacket stitched with a flaming skull, roared, "Welcome to Jersey, E.T., and hurled a bottle that exploded in blue flame across alien armor. The squad scattered. One trooper slipped on a spilled slushy and fired his plasma cannon straight into his comrade's backside. The translation system chirped with distress. Unit 14 expresses profound regret. Grakther's teeth ground so hard sparks nearly flew. He silenced the command room with a swipe of his talon. "This is a statistical anomaly. A coincidence of primitive savagery. Deploy the secondary unit. Crush them." Hours later, another squad attempted a landing further inland. This time they emerged in what seemed to be a quiet suburban neighborhood. It was calm, peaceful, full of neat lawns and children's toys scattered across driveways. The troopers exhaled with relief. Finally, some proper primitives. Then the garage door opened. A middle-aged man wheeled out a contraption welded from lawnmower blades, propane tanks, and duct tape. He grinned like a mad scientist. "Y'all picked the wrong cul-de-sac." The machine ignited, spewing a gout of flame and spinning blades. His neighbor, sipping a beer on the porch, raised his glass and shouted, "Show 'em, Carl." Chaos erupted again. The aliens' tactical training, designed for orderly battlefields, faltered in the face of improvised lunacy. Plasma rifles jammed with bubblegum hurled by kids on skateboards. A golden retriever stole an alien helmet and dashed off into the night. Someone blasted "Eye of the Tiger" from a portable speaker, turning the entire melee into an impromptu training montage. Back aboard the Oblivion's Fong, Gracthar's claws tapped against the console, his composure cracking. His voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "These humans, if they are myth, they are the kind that eats gods." Rylax swallowed hard. "Admiral, perhaps the myths understated them." Gracthar glared at the glowing blue orb below, its continents outlined in neon city lights, its oceans glimmering like a dare. He remembered the laughter of his officers, their mocking tones. Already, the galaxy thought him invincible. How could he return to the Council admitting failure against a people who weaponized toys and kitchen appliances? He straightened his spine and hissed, "No. This is nothing but the first ripple. Tomorrow we unleash the tide. Prepare the fleet. If these creatures dare to resist, we will show them the cost of defiance." Yet deep inside, a seed of unease took root, as if Earth itself had smirked at his certainty. Admiral Gracthar did not sleep. He sat rigid in his command chair, staring at a dozen holograms replaying the humiliations of the previous day. The paintball assault, the flaming bottles, the bizarre lawnmower blade contraption. He had replayed each frame enough times to memorize the primitive faces, their defiance, their laughter. It gnawed at him. No enemy had ever laughed in the face of the Kavorian Empire and lived to tell it. "Deploy the second wave," he ordered at dawn, his voice cracking like a whip. "Double the numbers. Triple the firepower. We will drown their insolence in plasma." Rylax shifted uncomfortably beside him. The young tactician had grown pale in his scales, his antennae twitching with unease. "Admiral, intelligence reports oddities. Civilian populations are not fleeing. They are gathering. Improvised barricades. Uncoordinated militias. Our analysts cannot make sense of it." "Then allow me," Gracthar snapped. His desperation. A primitive's last gasp before submission. Moments later, the second wave touched down on the wide avenues of Manhattan between towers of glass and steel. The soldiers marched in perfect formation, weapons humming, ready for a swift and crushing victory. But New York was awake, and New York was angry. The first plasma volley scorched a yellow taxi in half. The cab driver crawled out, furious rather than afraid. "You roast my cab? You pay for my cab," he screamed before charging the nearest alien with nothing but a tire iron. Within seconds, a dozen more drivers joined, swinging wrenches, slamming doors, honking horns in chaotic symphony. The aliens tried to hold formation, but traffic itself rose as an enemy. Gridlock trapped their transports. Anguished roars filled the comms. Unit 34 is surrounded by horn-blasting metal beasts. Gracthar's mandibles twitched. He didn't understand. This wasn't strategy. This wasn't even war. It was noise, fury, unpredictability incarnate. Yet his soldiers faltered. Then came the food vendors. Hot dogs flew like flaming projectiles, mustard blinding alien visors, boiling coffee splashed across delicate circuitry. A pretzel cart, pushed at alarming speed by two burly men, rammed into a squad and scattered them like bowling pins. From above, Gracthar could hardly believe what he saw. "This is not combat," he hissed. "This is chaos theater." "Sir," Rylax interjected cautiously, "perhaps they thrive on disorder. Their strength may be—" "Silence. I will not grant primitives the dignity of strategy." But strategy or not, the Empire's finest were routed. Every attempt to apply military logic met with human illogic. When the aliens sealed off a street, the humans tunneled through a subway. When they destroyed a bridge, humans floated across the river on inflatable pool toys, singing Bon Jovi with terrifying conviction. When plasma strikes leveled a neighborhood, survivors spray-painted murals on the ruins that mocked alien anatomy in ways the translation software politely refused to render. The humiliation deepened that night. The fleet's encrypted communications were hijacked. Across every alien ship, the speakers erupted with a single message. Musical note, never gonna give you up, never gonna let you down, musical note. It looped endlessly. Rick Astley's voice became the anthem of Earth's defiance. No counter-code worked. Every console flashed the same incomprehensible message: "You've been rickrolled." By the third hour of auditory torture, officers begged for mercy. Some tore out their audio implants. A few attempted to throw themselves into space. Grakther stood, trembling with fury, his pride bleeding from every scale. "Shut it off." "We can't, Admiral," Rylax admitted, his voice hoarse. "The humans have weaponized their culture." The Admiral snarled, claws carving gouges in the command rail. "Then we escalate. If brute force fails, precision will prevail." The next day, orbital strikes were authorized. The fleet targeted key infrastructure, intent on decapitating Earth's resistance. Yet every targeting array malfunctioned at the same moment. Alien AI cores stuttered, rerouting power toward nonsensical commands. One ship ejected its entire ammunition stockpile into orbit. Another flushed its gravity drive, pinning half the crew to the ceiling. A third activated karaoke mode and projected lyrics across the city skyline. "Sweet Caroline, B.A. Ba." "Explain." Grakther bellowed as systems went haywire. Rylax's mandibles trembled. "Human code. They inserted something into our networks. Crude, unsophisticated, but effective. A virus. From where?" Rylax hesitated. "From Windows 95. The Admiral froze. He didn't understand the words, but the way his officers recoiled told him enough. An ancient human weapon, something even his most advanced firewalls couldn't comprehend. Down on Earth, the humans laughed, cheered, and regrouped. Gamers piloted drones using controllers from their bedrooms. Farmers armored tractors and drove them into alien barricades. Retired soldiers trained teenagers in guerrilla tactics. And everywhere, the same truth was spoken: the invaders could bleed. For the first time in his career, Grakther felt something he had never allowed himself to feel. Fear. Not of human weapons, they were pitiful compared to the Empire's arsenal. No, his fear was of something far worse. Human audacity. Human madness. The refusal to acknowledge defeat even when logic demanded it. He gripped the command chair, forcing steel into his voice. "We adapt. We escalate. Tomorrow we crush their spirit." But even as he spoke, the humans were already preparing their next move, one no war manual could predict. In dark alleys, rooftops, and diners, plans were being hatched over cups of coffee and slices of pizza. The kind of plans only humans could imagine: absurd, reckless, and utterly effective. The Admiral didn't know it yet, but the invasion was no longer about conquest. It was about survival. Not Earth's. His own. Night settled across the bruised skies of Earth, and with it came the realization that the war had changed hands. For the first time in memory, the Kavorian Empire's soldiers had retreated. Not far, not formally, but enough to taste the bitter air of defeat. They held their positions in scorched streets and ruined parks, nervous claws tight around plasma rifles, listening for the next human absurdity to strike. Admiral Grakther paced the command deck of the Oblivion's Fong, his composure cracking like thin ice. Every battle had followed the same pattern: meticulous alien formations shattered by spontaneous lunacy. He could command fleets against organized armies, but against this? Against a people who turned every kitchen, playground, and stadium into a battlefield? No manual prepared him for that. "Report," he growled, his tail lashing with restrained fury. Rylax, bleary-eyed from sleepless shifts, read from a trembling data slate. In the last cycle, resistance forces coordinated with skateboarders. Casualties inflicted, 26. Our drones were disabled by paint-filled balloons. Civilian grandmothers have organized sniper nests with cookware. And Admiral, there is the pizza-based insurgency. Grakther froze mid-step. "Explain." "They deliver boxes," Rylax whispered. "Explosives hidden under melted cheese. Our troops can't resist opening them." The command deck fell silent, the weight of absurdity heavier than any gravity well. Grakther pressed his claws into his temples, willing away the pounding headache. He had fought in 17 campaigns across the stars. He had slaughtered titans, burned cities to ash, and broken empires. Yet now, on a backwater planet, he was losing to children with skateboards and pizza boxes. Meanwhile, down below, the humans celebrated their victories not with ceremony, but with beer, music, and an energy that bewildered every alien observer. In the ruins of a sports arena, survivors had set up a command hub lit by stadium generators. At its center sat a retired colonel, sharp-eyed and stone-jawed, surrounded by an eclectic band of volunteers. A pair of gamers tapped furiously at laptops, one muttering about packet loss, while the other bragged about uploading a Trojan virus, disguised as an AOL free trial disk. A farmer leaned against his pitchfork, blueprinting how to strap anti-gravity drives to a combine harvester. A wiry old woman polished a cast-iron skillet like it was a holy relic, muttering, "They'll never see this one coming." And then there was Danny, a college dropout who had been delivering pizzas before the invasion began. He smirked at the group, tossing a roll of duct tape between his hands. "We don't need tanks. We need timing, guts, and maybe some fireworks from the 4th of July stash. Lucky for us, I know a guy." The colonel frowned, but his eyes gleamed with reluctant admiration. "Son, you're insane." Danny grinned wider. Exactly what they can't fight. Their plans grew bolder. Drone pilots, skateboarders, street racers, all found a place in the patchwork resistance. No uniform, no clear chain of command, but every soul brought the same furious determination. They weren't fighting to protect a government or a flag. They were fighting because someone had come to their backyard uninvited, and humans didn't take kindly to that. The aliens knew nothing of this kind of unity. Their order was forged from hierarchy, obedience, and fear of failure. The human strength came from laughter in the rubble, sarcasm in the face of annihilation, and a reckless confidence that borders couldn't divide. When the first counteroffensive came, it wasn't from armies or governments. It was from this strange coalition of ordinary people. At dawn, an alien patrol advancing through a deserted suburb was suddenly blinded by a cascade of mirrors duct taped to rooftops, reflecting the rising sun. While they staggered, skateboarders launched from improvised ramps, lobbing Molotov cocktails with gleeful whoops. Drones swarmed overhead, guided not by military satellites, but by teenagers with VR headsets and too much Mountain Dew in their bloodstream. One alien officer was captured when he slipped on a trail of marbles poured across the pavement. He was dragged into a basement, strapped to a chair, and interrogated. Not with torture, but with an endless marathon of friends. After 36 hours of Chandler's sarcasm and Ross's whining, the officer broke down and begged for mercy. Back in orbit, Grachther slammed his fist against the console. This is humiliation beyond comprehension. Do they not understand war? Rylax, whose sarcasm was leaking through his exhaustion, muttered, "Admiral, it seems they understand it differently." The Admiral ignored the comment, though his scales flushed darker. "Then we will use terror. We will burn their monuments. Break their spirits." But even as he spoke, another report came in. An entire platoon had defected. The reason? They had tasted pizza. The culinary ambrosia had spread through the ranks like a contagion of doubt. A message intercepted from one deserter simply read, "No empire is worth more than pepperoni." Grachther's vision blurred with rage. He wanted to crush this world into dust, to silence its chaos forever. Yet every strike his fleet attempted was undermined, disrupted, or twisted into spectacle. When he ordered an orbital bombardment, humans launched thousands of disco balls into the skies, their glittering surfaces scrambling targeting arrays. When he ordered stealth infiltration, humans greeted his agents with karaoke nights that lured them into singing competitions instead of reconnaissance. The line between battle and carnival blurred, and the Admiral felt himself slipping into madness. On Earth, Danny leaned against the hood of a battered car, watching fireworks streak above the city as alien systems sputtered and collapsed. He took a bite of cold pizza and laughed. They still don't get it. They think war's about rules. But us, we're improv artists with shotguns. The colonel crossed his arms. "Don't get cocky. They'll regroup. They'll hit us harder." Danny shrugged. "Then we'll hit back harder. Or weirder. Whatever works." In the sky, the Oblivion's Fong loomed like a shadow over the world. Grachther stared at the pale orb of Earth, the glow of its cities, mocking him. His pride demanded victory, yet the creeping dread whispered that every escalation only tightened the human's grip. He turned to Rylax, voice raw. "This is not a war. This is a nightmare." Rylax didn't answer. He was staring at the latest human broadcast hijacked onto the fleet's networks, a rock concert in Central Park, thousands of humans chanting, fists raised, while bands blasted guitar riffs into the night. The lyrics scrolled across the screens, "We're not gonna take it." For the first time in his career, Admiral Grachther wondered if retreat was the wiser choice. But pride, the cruelest of chains, locked his jaw. "Prepare the fleet," he ordered, though his voice lacked its usual venom. "Tomorrow we end this." Down below, humanity prepared too, but not with solemn vows or endless strategies. They tuned guitars, stacked fireworks, charged drones, and sharpened kitchen knives. The world had never been more united, not through fear, but through the sheer thrill of telling an empire, no. And as dawn crept across the horizon, the stage was set for a final act neither side fully understood. Dawn bled across the horizon, the light glinting against the massive hull of the Oblivion's Fong. It hung like a predator over the earth, its shadow casting whole cities into gloom. On the command deck, Admiral Grachther stood tall, though his posture trembled under the weight of weeks of humiliation. Pride had kept him from retreat. Rage had kept him from surrender. But now he stared at the pale blue planet with a predator's hunger sharpened by desperation. "Full fleet," he ordered, voice gravel against steel. "We strike with everything. No more containment. No more restraint. We erase this world." Rylax flinched at the words. The young tactician had watched his admiral unravel day by day, the aura of invincibility stripped away by humans who fought with laughter and junkyard ingenuity. Rylax spoke carefully, like a man tiptoeing across glass. "Admiral, if we fail again, the Council will not forgive us. The galaxy is watching. They whisper already." "They whisper myths," Grachther snarled. His claws dug furrows into the command rail. "We will silence them with fire." Below, humanity stirred. In the ruins of cities and suburbs alike, ordinary people armed themselves not with uniform weapons, but with the madness of improvisation. Danny climbed onto the roof of the battered stadium they had turned into a headquarters, megaphone in one hand, pizza box in the other. "Listen up," he shouted to the crowd. Faces turned, farmers, bikers, kids with paintball gear, soldiers stripped of insignia, grandmothers wielding skillets. "They're coming with everything. So we give them everything back. Not discipline, not order. Just us, loud, crazy, stubborn as hell." The colonel barked, "You think noise will stop plasma cannons?" Danny grinned. "Not noise. Music." He nodded to the bands tuning up on the makeshift stage, guitars wailing across the ruins. "They don't understand rock and roll. That's our weapon." And so it began. The sky split open as the alien fleet descended, weapons glowing with apocalyptic fire. But Earth's response was not silence or surrender. It was music, loud, defiant, and utterly human. AC/DC thundered from every speaker, Metallica screamed from hijacked radio towers, the Beastie Boys blasted from convoys of armored school buses rolling through the streets. The rhythm shook the ground, the chords rattled windows, and the lyrics screamed into the heavens like a war cry. Alien targeting arrays faltered, scrambling against the interference. The music wasn't just noise, it was chaos encoded, rhythms their systems couldn't parse. Plasma strikes veered wide, beams scattering harmlessly into the sky. Grachther's officers shouted in panic. "Our sensors can't lock. The frequencies, they're colliding with the targeting matrix. Counter it." Grachther roared. Rylax whispered what no one dared say aloud. "Admiral, they've weaponized their spirit." Down below, the counteroffensive surged. Farmers rode flying tractors rigged with stolen gravity drives, swooping across alien formations. Gamers piloted swarms of hacked drones, raining fireworks and paint bombs across armored squads. Taxi drivers coordinated in suicidal unison, yellow cabs slamming into alien mechs. And through it all, humans laughed, jeered, shouted movie lines at the bewildered invaders. "Yippee-ki-yay!" echoed from the rooftops, followed by a rain of homemade explosives. For all their technology, the aliens faltered. They had never faced an enemy that refused to behave. Every advance collapsed under improvisation. Every countermeasure failed against human unpredictability. Grachther's fury boiled over. "Bring the flagship into the atmosphere. I will lead the strike myself." The Oblivion's Fong descended, its colossal frame blotting out the sun. Cities trembled under its engines. Humanity stared upward, dwarfed by the scale of annihilation. Danny, standing amid the rubble, tilted his head back and whispered, "Guess it's boss fight time." He turned to the colonel. "You got one last play." The colonel's face hardened, then cracked into the faintest grin. "Not me. You." And so the final plan unfolded, as insane as every one before it. Human hackers, fueled by energy drinks and sheer stubbornness, breached the flagship's comms once more. But this time, they didn't send a virus. They sent a broadcast. Every screen aboard the alien fleet flickered to life, with a live feed from Earth. The camera panned across the resistance, farmers, kids, soldiers, old women, bikers, all standing shoulder to shoulder, fists raised. And then Danny stepped forward, holding a microphone like a weapon. "You wanted to erase us," he said, voice amplified across the void. "But here we are. Not a myth, not a bedtime story, just humans. Loud, crazy, impossible humans. And if you think you can burn us out of the sky, then come and try. But I promise you this, we'll never stop. Because this, he gestured at the crowd, the music, the chaos of unity. This is who we are. The humans roared, a sound so raw it rattled even the reinforced hull of the flagship. Grakther froze. For the first time in his life, he saw not prey, not primitives, but something that terrified him more than death, a species that could not be conquered because they did not believe in defeat. Rylax's voice broke the silence. Admiral, they've won. Even if we crush their bodies, their spirit will spread. The galaxy will hear this. Humanity is no myth. It is a contagion. Grakther's claws quivered. His pride screamed for one last strike, but his instincts whispered the truth. To continue was suicide. To retreat was humiliation. There was no victory left, only choices of shame. At last, his voice cracked, stripped of grandeur. Signal withdrawal. The order rippled through the fleet. Engines roared, weapons dimmed, and one by one the ships turned away from Earth. The shadow lifted, and sunlight poured once more across the battered world. On the ground, humanity erupted into cheers. Fireworks lit the skies, guitars wailed, and strangers embraced in the rubble. Danny collapsed onto the hood of a taxi, laughing until he cried. The colonel saluted no flag, but raised a beer instead. The grandmother with the skillet kissed her cast iron like a medal. Far above, in the silence of his retreating flagship, Admiral Grakther whispered the words that would haunt him forever. Humans are just a myth, he had once said. But now, as the pale blue planet receded behind him, he admitted the truth. I wish they were.